Great, Kristen.
Okay.
It looks nice. It looks beautiful.
It's gonna get dark in a minute, so you won't be able to see it. So I'm
I know,
playing it
but
out
you're
so
lucky.
everybody can chill.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And we need Richard, although we still have a few minutes. We do have a quorum, so we could start the meeting. But we need Brian because the first item on the agenda is Oriente Avenue, and we need Brian. So he may be in the waiting room.
I don't see him. He's not in.
Okay. Okay. Oh, well, there's LMC TV is in the waiting room. Do you need to? Oh, here they are. They're live. Okay, that's good. All right. Tomorrow night is the town next door's planning board meeting. There's an issue of concern to me on it. I'm thinking of watching. They're upgrading. The state is upgrading a critical intersection, and it's right near a river, and the commercial property next to the intersection wants to change their entrance and egress, and they want to impose and get closer to the waterway. Just
Hello.
right up our alley.
All about that. Hi, John.
Hi, Kath. How are you?
Hi, John. That was Cindy, but we all do look alike.
Oh.
Interchangeable.
John, you need your video. Here's Brian.
Oh, video. Yep. Start
Okay,
video.
we just need Richard.
Here we go.
Hi, John.
Hello. How you doing?
Good.
Hey.
Okay. We're going to take the agenda out of order, by the way. I'll talk about it when we call the meeting to order. We're going to put the executive session at the end because John has to leave for the Hampshire, and this way you don't have to stick around.
I'm also recused on the first matter.
Oh, then you didn't have to join us right away.
I didn't know what the
Accommodate
time.
you for everything. So you're going to have to,
I'll have to mute myself.
Madam Chair, Kathy, if you want, maybe move the items that he can participate, move those up. And then the items that he has to recuse himself, start those at the after we finish the other items.
well, that's why I wanted to do the executive session at the end and after the minutes. But I don't know. I think the Oriente Avenue item is going to be pretty short. It depends on Brian. But how does one recuse themselves? Do you have to leave the meeting and log back in? or how does this work on Zoom? We've never had.
Well, I mean, he'd have to leave the meeting, and then we'd have to tell him to come back in at the appropriate time.
We'd
So
have to text you and have you come back in.
Okay.
Hi, Richard. Well, we can move Oriente Avenue to after the minutes, I guess.
Unless the
But it
applicant.
doesn't.
the
But no,
applicant-
it doesn't work anyway because John has to be in the executive session for the first matter, but not the second matter. So John, you're going to have to leave the meeting regardless of how we order that. We can save you from sticking around after we go into
Okay.
session.
So we're into Avenue since I don't want to influence anything. If I just shut off my video, and mute myself, I won't be participating.
I think that somebody can actually, William, you're managing it. Can you prevent him from hearing anything? Can you turn off the sound for him?
I don't know if I can turn off his sound.
I don't think we have to worry about John hearing anything. We just,
Right.
he
Just
you know,
He just can't
he
participate.
can listen, he can't participate or make faces at us or anything.
All right, so
Right.
yeah, if you turn
Turn
off
off
your
the
audio
video
and you
and
turn off
the
your
video.
video, okay.
Yeah.
We have a solution and it's 7:01 and I never start a meeting later than 7:01. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. All members of the planning board are present, along with William Long, our village planner, Christy Mason, planning board attorney, and consultants Brian Hildebrand and Susan Oakley. As I was just saying, but in case you didn't come in early, we're going to take the items on the agenda out of order. We'll do Orienta Avenue, we'll do West Boston Post Road, we'll do Shore Acres Drive, we'll do the tree ordinance, then we're going to do 6 sets of minutes, and then we'll go into executive session. And that's because John is recused from one of the items in the executive session, and therefore he can then, he doesn't have to stick around, he can leave. And can leave if they want to as well, because once you start getting to that part, it gets kind of boring. All we're going to do is come back and adjourn the meeting. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is application from 886 Orienta Avenue, which also involves 888 Orienta Avenue. 886 is seeking to change the lot line and to annex some land that is currently part of 888 Orienta Avenue. And they were last before the planning board, before we went on hiatus for August in July, and there were some questions about the SWIP. But before we get into that and reopen, John is recused from this item.
Right.
So John
I'm
is
recused for matters
himself.
previously stated, and so I am going to remove myself.
You're going to remove yourself. And there he goes. He's muted and his video's on. Okay, so as I was just saying, we had some questions about whether or not the stormwater management plans would work, especially for 888, if the back half of or the back part of the property was conveyed to the 886. And we asked Brian, our engineering consultant, to take a look at it. And Brian, you are up.
Yes, so they did submit, applicant submitted a concept plan showing the potential development if the lot line change were to be approved for 888 Orienta. And one question, they showed that what they could build a zoning compliant house. They had stormwater areas that were previously approved and could be reused for this development. But I had one question, and I put it in my memo, was that there was a third stormwater system in the rear, the originally approved rear yard, the previous rear yard, which now would be conveyed. And I didn't know, it wasn't clear from the plan why that system existed. It seemed like it just picked up overland flow from the yard. So it wasn't collecting any impervious previously that I could see. So I was hoping, since there is history here between the board members, no more than I, before my involvement, or even the applicant could explain, and maybe there's a justification to why it was proposed, and then now why it can justifiably be not constructed. So
Okay, so this goes back before my time, the way I understand it, and I'm going to ask Ms. Goldstein to jump in because she was actually on HCZM when these two projects were approved, when the subdivision was approved. That's separated this one lot into these two lots that are now moving lot lines. But my understanding now is that if the rear portion of 888 were to be conveyed to 886, the approved plans by the previous boards for 888 would basically be null and void, because to make a zoning compliant house, to fit a zoning compliant house on the new lot, it would have to be somewhat smaller. Is that correct, Brian? You pointed that out to us, that the
right.
concept plan shows a smaller house.
It seemed like the footprint was smaller to fit within the setbacks.
Okay.
So that's, if the lot lines were changed, the applicant would have to resubmit for a stormwater permit to the building department with all the new information.
Not just a stormwater permit, but a whole, you know, if the building itself is changing, any approvals they have from the building department, wouldn't they have to be reworked? I mean, wait, I think Frank is here. He has to be promoted to a participant. I saw him in the attendees.
All right, give me a second.
Okay. Frank Tavalaggi, our acting building inspector, is with us tonight. Here he is. Hi, Frank. Okay, Frank, we need your audio and video.
I don't know. He was having problems earlier. He called me. So
Okay.
I know he was able to watch and listen, but I don't know if he's able to speak. He was having problems with his microphone.
Okay. Well, perhaps, I mean, right now, then it seems that everyone, this side, the Village of Mamaroneck side, is just a little unsure as to why that third stormwater system in the rear yard existed and whether it would, whether 888 would be able to manage their stormwater without that, because that would no longer be on their property. So perhaps, as Brian suggested, the applicant can explain it to us?
All right, bring in the applicant.
I forgot my water. Here's Chris.
Hi, good evening. How are you, Ms. Chairman, members of the board?
Okay.
I'm Adam Wickstein from Hockerman, Tortorella and Wickstein. And I'm certainly not an engineer, but from our perspective, it's fairly straightforward. I mean, you approved an SPP as part of the site plan for this property, and that was for a certain house. Those Caltech units that were on what would now be part of the subdivision and joined with 886 are no longer necessary, according to Mr. Senior, who's the engineer, to serve that conceptual plan. As soon as you grant this subdivision, and I don't speak for the owner of 888, but I agree completely with the chairwoman, which is that they'd have to come in with a new plan and get a new approval for an SPPP for the new design. What you have now is the conceptual design, because I don't think 888 Orienta Point is ready to put together a specific design at the moment. So what was approved several years ago really isn't relevant going forward. I'm sorry?
I don't know who's just speaking.
I'm sorry. We also have Kristen Motel, who actually represents the owner of 888. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, she's here.
Sorry about that.
Good evening, everyone. Kristen Motel from Cuddy and Fader for the owner of 888 Orient Avenue. We have a letter that we submitted to the planning board dated August 6th, 2020. And Adam, I'm not sure if you previously covered this. That was submitted to planning board from Gabriel Senior's office. It's from Elliot Senior PE, and he indicates that those Caltech units that will be removed are not going to have any impact to proposed development of the site. And just to reiterate what Attorney Weckstein had just said, any new proposal that involves this property is going to have to receive an amended SWIP and amended permits from the building department, certainly because the old permits won't be valid once the lot gets subdivided. The plans have to be amended anyway. Our client's plans will change if the subdivision is approved.
Okay. So, I don't know, it doesn't seem like we, I guess we were concerned that 888 would be left with an inability to move forward, but everybody's assuring us that, and especially the representatives for 888, that they seem fine with it all. Does anybody on the planning board have any questions or comments for either of the two representatives?
I do.
Yeah, she's got the history here.
I've got some history, but I'm just wondering, just for my own curiosity, why you subdivided it once, you made two relatively equal sized lots. Why are you chopping off the back of the one lot that's not yet developed to add it to the other house? I don't understand it. So I was just wondering if you could enlighten me on that.
Yeah, sure. The Sigelows want a buffer area for their house. They may eventually develop with one of the accessory uses that's allowed, such as a pool, such as a shed, any number of other minor accessory structures, which they'd also have to get stormwater approval for if it were more than 200 square feet. And it leaves both lots still well over the minimum and zoning compliant.
No, that makes sense to me. I assumed it was something like that. But I'm just wondering, and maybe Frank, it looks like maybe Frank can tell us, or maybe someone else has the information for me. Obviously, there's a change in lot size. What was the FAR for the currently configured lot? And what is the FAR for the changed lot line property? Because it sounds like, I'm guessing you're going to have a significantly smaller house than what originally got approved as a subdivision. I'm also figuring that originally designed house on 888, the Cultex and the stormwater system were there for a reason. It's not, I don't assume that the engineer over-designed the stormwater system to have a third system that wasn't really necessary. So, as part of what our requirements under the code are to do this, and it sounds simple, moving a lot line, but we have to meet certain criteria, especially code section 58-4. We've got to know that stormwater can be adequately handled. And I just want to make sure that if someone wanted to build out 888 to the maximum FAR allowed, would they be able to handle their stormwater? So is the concept plan at a full build out of 888?
Yes, the concept plan's at a full build out, but it's at a zoning compliant build out. So as I indicated, the prior plans for the home are going to change. The home, whatever's going to be proposed, if the subdivision gets approved, is going to be fully zoning compliant. That's what our engineer looked at. And that's what the concept letter that addresses the SWIP is designed to handle. And those Cultex, the system's going to be redesigned so it can still manage stormwater. It's still going to meet the requirement.
Based on whatever the maximum build out, whatever the FAR is for the smaller lot.
Well, that's what they evaluated for this letter, but the final SWIP is going to be tailored to the new home that's proposed.
Right, but I'm assuming someone's going to do a full build out, and that's, I think that in the past, that's certainly what we have looked at, because I would certainly not want someone to have a rude surprise. They're buying this lot and they think they can put on a certain size house, but they can't handle their stormwater. So, and that's a lose-lose for everyone, including the neighbors,
Right.
in terms of stormwater. So as I said,
Right. Any SWIP would have, any SWIP would have to be approved still by the building and the engineering departments before any permits could be issued for any new house that's proposed.
I have a question. This is for our attorney and maybe for Cindy. Since everything's going to change for 888 and HCZM has given everything approval, but yet now everything's going to change, would 888 have to go back to HCZM? Or is it something that just the building department handles? Because it would be a different SWIP with this one section that was being used for some reason that Brian couldn't ascertain from the files, is not going to be there anymore.
Cindy, you might be able to answer that more quickly.
Yeah,
than me.
I don't think they need to go to HCZM about this. This is not a consistency question for this kind of thing. But I'm assuming it would come back to it wouldn't even come to the planning board.
No.
Right. It goes
We're
nowhere.
totally in the building department then.
Right, right.
And the engineers would be looking at the SWIP, making sure everything works for the smaller, built out, but zoning compliant house that would go on 888.
And so what's the change in the FAR from the what could be built now with the current lot line configuration, and what's changed? I'm just.
I mean, I don't have, yeah, I don't have.
She
those
probably
numbers
doesn't have those
in front
numbers.
of me. We also don't know what we're going to propose, right? It might not be a max build out. So the change in FAR is, it's speculative at this point.
Yeah, but there's no question in my mind if this is a developer that, you want to maximize, you want to build what people want, and that's fine. I don't seem to have the memo, the August memo. Is that?
That's the concept plan that came to us. With 2 documents.
What was the date of that?
August 6th, I believe.
There was an August 6th letter from Elliott Senior that accompanied the concept plan.
Okay. I don't have a copy of it, but that's okay. And so no one can explain that third stormwater system on the, I know from driving past the site for almost 30 years that it's very wet back there, just when it rains. So, to chop out a large chunk of the stormwater management system, granted the house would have been bigger, but I need to feel comfortable that this is actually that the stormwater actually can be managed. And I'm sorry, I did not see that August 6th letter, and I would feel much more comfortable if Brian could issue us a memo, outlining all of this, because again, this is in the code. We have got to make sure that the stormwater, that they can be adequately drained without damaging surrounding properties. So you're already pumping the water up to Orienta Avenue to get it out through that first set of stormwater management. I don't know where any other stormwater management system, I mean, it's a complicated site for water. It's wet. It's really wet all the time. And it's that back part that's wet. So if you can't use that for stormwater mitigation, I don't know where you put it.
Well, so the engineer had to look at that, and they have to redesign the stormwater to accommodate and comply with the requirements. The answer just isn't to remove those Coltex in the rear of the lot and be done with it. They have to make up for it somewhere else. So the stormwater can be designed to manage a full build out of the site. And that's what the August 6th letter from our engineer states. And Brian, I believe you had some discussions with either my colleague Lucia Kioki or someone from Elliott Senior's office regarding the answer to this question. I don't know if you've had time to think about it anymore, or you want to say anything.
Well, yeah, I have had discussions prior to my memo, and I was hoping just to have some clarification, because I know the board was asking at the last meeting just about this topic, that it is a wet site. There was a history, there was a reason, this system seemingly not collecting any roof or driveway was, I mean, I don't think they would have done it on their own. I think someone, there were some requirement that led them to propose that system. So I just, if your engineer says he could do it all on site, that, that's fine. That will all be hashed out, as you said, with the stormwater permit. But I know the board didn't have a level of comfort as to, that it was that clean of a process. So.
Right.
Exactly. So that's what that August 6th letter from the engineer certifies, that yes, the stormwater management system can be amended. It can accommodate it. For any new permit gets issued from the village, your office of the building department, they're going to have to certify with anyway.
I understand that. I just don't think this board needs to punt this because there is a code requirement. I'm not, I'm not coming up with this on my own. For us to grant your request, we have got to have assurances that the stormwater can be handled under the new configuration. And Brian, this question is for you. So are they changing in the concept plan? And I know it's a concept, I get that. Are they changing from a Caltech system to something else? Is it a different system?
No, same type of chambers, with a rough size, not even sizing to show, I believe they showed areas similar to what was approved previously.
Okay, that's not going to cut it for me personally. I would ask that you take a look at this and issue us a memo with your analysis, not just taking the word of the applicant's engineer. That's
There
why we
hasn't been
rely
an
on
analysis yet. That the problem is there hasn't been any calculations or anything
Right.
submitted.
There's
They
nothing for him
have
to analyze.
first
So
We're not,
before they can further.
This is being made unduly complicated, with all due respect. The Caltex were there for a different designed house, different size, different location, the ones that were on the property that's being transferred. To have design calculations and a detailed plan for a house that probably will never be built doesn't make sense for moving a lot line. And I don't like to read, but if you haven't all seen Mr. Senor's letter, he says, based on our experience with the properties, characteristics, including soil types, our design experience with the approved SWPPP, we confirm that an amended SWPPP will effectively manage stormwater from a zoning compliant house, and associated impervious surfaces can be designed to meet all applicable regulatory requirements on the portion of the property that Orienta Point 888 LLC will retain if the lot line change is approved. It's stated pretty clearly and unequivocally, and the jurisdiction to go through the niceties of a stormwater management plan in your code are in fact given to your engineering department, or what's known as the stormwater management officer, and the building department. I mean, that's where it's vested. I know you absolutely have jurisdiction over drainage. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish that. But to go through a design phase on something that really is predominantly within the jurisdiction, presumably of Mr. Hildenbrand and Mr. Tavolaci, for simply moving a lot line, I would submit doesn't make sense.
I'm just going to go by our code, and I'm not comfortable until our engineer has agreed with your engineer. I mean, that's why we rely on our professionals. It's not because I understand how to read those things, but hopefully just to ask the right questions to get the information and make sure everything's done according to the code.
But are you saying that this has to be a designed house that's never going to be built for that determination to be made? I mean, they're limited as to what they can do both by the stormwater management and the zoning regulations. And if they can't build a house, they can't build a house. And if they can't build the house they want, they can't build it. It is a 23,000 square foot lot in an R20 zone. We're not talking about an undersized lot here.
No, I'm not suggesting anybody would, and I'm sure no one's looking to make this lot line change and make the lot unbuildable. That wouldn't make any sense from any kind of value, because then, frankly, 886 should just take over 888. I am just trying to have confidence that the stormwater can be managed with the maximum allowed zoning compliant house on that lot. If it's never built, it's never built, but.
Okay, let me see if I can just sort of summarize where we are right now, because I think we're going around in circles. I think both representatives from both properties are telling us that you're giving us assurances, professional assurances that, let's start with 888. If and when a house is ever going to be built on that, it will go through the process of review by our building department. Any approvals that were given in the past are no longer valid because the lot has changed, or the lot will possibly change. And there will be new plans, new permits, and a new SWIP, or stormwater protection plan, a new SWIP that will have to be done and approved And if it doesn't get approved, the house won't be built. Is that basically what you're saying? And you're basically saying to us, okay, it doesn't matter what's happening now. This will all go through a rigorous process then.
With one more
Accurate.
step, with one more step, you have a professional engineer telling you it can work.
Well, that's what I said. You're giving us
Oh, I
professional
apologize.
assurances from, right, that's what I
You did say that, actually. Sorry.
thank you. Okay. And then for 886, clearly, there was some stormwater apparatus or whatever systems that were being put in the back of that lot for a reason. So if the owners of 886 were to annex that portion, and if they were to ever do anything with it, they would have to do the same thing. They would have to do a stormwater management. Right now it's empty land, and so it's just kind of sitting there. But they would have to do everything that would be required by their engineers at the time they wanted to do. I mean, if they were to put a pool in there, maybe they don't even need a pool if it's that wet. But they would have to do the same thing when that happens. That's what you guys are saying, correct?
Yes, any kind of disturbance.
Okay, and what Ms. Goldstein is saying is that, well, our code basically requires the planning board to have assurances that the stormwater will be managed on the property and will not do any damage or not flow to any neighbors or anything like that. Now, we have had subdivisions where there have not been any plans to build a house on the land, and they had to do a full SWIP in order to meet the code for us. You should just know that. This isn't a precedent here. It's been done. We've had subdivisions where before we subdivided the land, we had to see what would happen if and when a house ever got built. So just so you know. And it was not that long ago. It was in 2019.
Osborne Avenue.
Yeah, Osborne Avenue. Yeah. At least that one.
I mean,
There was a problem with the subdivision where it wasn't done, and it had to be retrofitted after the house was put in.
well, that was a different one. But we've got
Right.
two code sections we're dealing with: A 348-21A2 and 58-4. So we can't do a subdivision without having assurances. And I know your professionals have done their work, but I'd like our village consulting engineer to confirm that.
Right, but he can't because there's nothing that he can review to confirm.
Okay.
That's the question.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Brian, but I think that's what you said. And I'm just repeating what you said, right?
Right. I mean, I could say that based on, I looked at the old SWIP and, the locations on the concept plan are the previous locations that have been tested. But, I don't have the square footages of impervious and runoff calculations. But generally, the two locations that will collect the house and the driveway are the same. It really was just a question of why that third system, it's large. It's about, I don't know, about a third of the previous approval. If that's no longer in play, are they going to paint themselves into a corner and not have the project they want? But that's on the applicant. I know
Right.
the board wasn't comfortable. So if
Right.
are based on what the engineer has said, then that's fine.
Right. And that might be on both applicants. If that was required because of something that was going on the property and they take over the property, they have to then deal with the stormwater on that property because it's no longer, if it's flowing onto a neighbor, it will pool and flow onto the neighbor even if they don't do anything with it. So they have to prevent stormwater from leaving their property. And if they take over that property and that stormwater is flowing onto 888, that's an issue for them now, correct? Isn't that the way these things work?
Right.
Right. So that would be something that this applicant 886 is going to have to address as if and when that property gets transferred and the lot line changes.
No question.
That's the way it looks like to me, but so I don't know. I mean, Cindy is quoting the code. She's correct. This is what we're supposed to do. There are definitely issues here. You guys are telling us, oh, we're overcomplicating things. You know, well, that's your opinion. And I know you want to move forward, although I'm not sure why there's an urgency here if they're not planning to do anything with the land right away other than manage their new area of stormwater problems. So anybody else have any thoughts on how we should proceed here? Because I'm kind of at a loss.
Maybe on one last thing. Just one last thing. I don't want to go in circles, and I'm sorry to prolong this. You've talked about subdivision regulations. If you look at your code, actually, site plan explicitly requires an SWPPP for your board and for approval. Subdivision does not. And in fact, the part of your code that deals with the stormwater and erosion control specifically says if an application is to one of the boards, the village board, the planning board, the zoning board, the jurisdiction over the SWPP rests in the stormwater management officer. So you've said you've done it, and I understand your concern over drainage, and you do have jurisdiction over drainage. So it's a strange way to write a code, and maybe it's a mistake. But to say, absolutely, we have to do this just isn't what your code says.
You're right. It does not say a SWIP. In our previous experience with several other properties, it came down to a SWIP being the easiest way to assure everybody that the stormwater can be handled. If there's another way, I'm happy to look at that or have our consulting engineer look at that.
May I ask, and this will be the last thing that I say unless you have questions, was that an application about site plan and subdivision, or was it just a straight subdivision? Because they're different.
That was a subdivision,
I think it was a subdivision.
just a plain subdivision.
I don't know about the one on Soundview Drive. That was before my time. I only know that the stormwater is now discharging into a drain in front of my house. And
Osborne
two
was a
blocks away.
subdivision. Osborne was a subdivision, and they said they had no plans to build on it, and was on the market within 2 weeks. So it's fine, and that's okay. But as whatever method, I think we left it up to the engineer to decide whatever method they needed to employ to make everybody comfortable, including our engineer, that the stormwater could be handled. And I'm only having trouble with this because I know the site, I know it's wet, and the previous SWIP for that site had a whole extra set of like 9 or 12 Cultex in the back, which part of the property will be lost. So I think it's a valid question to say, where is that water going?
Question then for 886, if we change the lot line and they take that piece of property, then it will be a question for them right away. Because if it rains and that water is draining onto 888, then they're in violation of the code immediately. Because then they are allowing discharge of stormwater onto a neighbor's property, which is.
I'm sorry, you're saying if 886 discharges?
If 886 annexes that piece of property in the back, and that's where it gets wet, and that's where extra, whatever that apparatus is, I'm not familiar with the engineering terms, and that was going to manage it when 888 built out. But if the ownership of that piece of property changes, and our code says that one piece of property cannot discharge any stormwater onto their neighbors, you don't have to do anything back there in order for the discharge to happen. It just has to rain.
Oh,
So
I did.
a piece of property belonging to 888, it'll belong to 886, and by 886 owning that property, and if that property floods and water discharges off of it, just by owning it, they will then have to do something about the stormwater on it because they will be discharging onto 888. Right? Am I missing something here?
I don't agree with it at all. What you're regulating in your code and what you can only regulate is activity, land disturbing activity, construction. If the natural.
So we don't have to worry about it until they do something.
Correct. And at that point, if we discharge, we have a problem. I agree.
Okay, I don't know. I mean, we have 4 members of the planning board here. We've heard from 2, me, and I don't really know how to go forward. Richard or Lou, do you have anything?
No, I look, I haven't said anything because I totally agree with what Cindy and Wes is trying to achieve here.
Do you agree with Cindy?
I mean, there's a projection. I'm sorry? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
I said I agree. Let me start to say, do I agree with Cindy?
Okay, you agree with Cindy.
I do too.
Can you hear me?
Okay, so it looks like the majority of the planning board really wants more assurances.
I think what we're looking for, hold on. I think what we're looking for, engineering projection on the stormwater design. We're not asking you to do a full design, but we like to see, like we did Fosborn, we wanted to see if there's the probabilities of a failure when it comes to stormwater or not. And so, I mean, why can't the developer's engineer do some sort of a engineering study about the site conditions, the existing site conditions, and projections of possible scenarios? That's not an engineering study. And then our engineer can take a look at that. I mean, why isn't that possible?
The owner at 888 submitted a concept plan from the engineer in response to the comments received by this board in July. And we submitted a letter from the engineer addressing your engineer's question about the Coltex. So short of what we've already provided, I mean, I guess we'll need to get some kind of understanding from Brian on what else you need from us, because this is all hypothetical and we've already submitted concept plans and assurances from a professional that the site can handle the stormwater.
So we're talking about, we're only talking about one site. What about the other site?
886 is fully built out. We're not doing anything other than adding land to it. There's no more impervious surfaces, no land disturbance. And if and when we propose anything, we will have to go get the permit and have Brian review, or whoever's there review the real plan for what we're doing.
So if there's an engineering study already done for the empty site, is that what we're looking for, Cindy?
You're breaking up, Lou, but I'm going to rely on.
I thought that we didn't have anything.
We have the old SWIP for the empty lot right now for 888. So maybe there's something that Brian couldn't, if that all that work has been done, maybe there's a way to update that or synthesize that to the change in lot size. Maybe it's not that difficult.
And right, I could speak to that it was approved, it was a functioning, those areas will work again. It was really a question that I just keep, what was that third? It doesn't seem like that third area was treating impervious surface. So I'm just trying to think of what issue were they trying to mitigate with that. And I just haven't gotten that answer.
They were trying to mitigate the constant wetness in the soil back there. Yeah. I believe it had nothing to do with the building. I think those Coltex were, again, I'm going to assume the engineers didn't add more Coltex and more expense than necessary. It had to deal with groundwater, probably. I don't know, but somebody can figure that out, I assume.
So we've submitted a letter from a professional engineer saying that the stormwater can be amended to handle this. What else would you need, Brian, to make a determination? Or have you seen the letter that was submitted in August 6th along with a concept SWIP? Just so we're all on the same page here.
I've read the letter and I've had the concept plan. And when I compare those two, so my comment came after reviewing those two, and I don't know if numbers and calculations, that all will come. That's been determined. That's maybe not that will be handled when they go for a permit. It's really just some clarification on if removing, I know the areas the engineer shows now can handle the house and the driveway. But I'm just trying to think about why. I just haven't gotten an answer about why that third Coltech system collecting, it looked like there was a swale coming from 886. It wasn't not they weren't collecting the roof and treating the water. It was coming off site over land, and they were putting infrastructure in. It's really, I'm just looking for an answer to why that's there.
This could be very simple. Somebody just explaining why that third part of the stormwater management plan was there in the first place, and whether it
It's been removed.
because it's just not going to be there anymore. So that it's okay to remove it. It's not going to have any impact on anything happening in the front part of the lot. So.
And it'll reference the site condition too.
Right, it'll reference the site condition. And if we get to that point in time, I think that we'd be ready to have a draft resolution at our next meeting. Is that, am I going too far? And ask the planning department, the planning staff to prepare, and the attorneys to prepare a draft resolution and approving the lot change at the next meeting. Okay. Why don't we do?
Really appreciate it.
Does that sound good? Okay. Everybody would be happy with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's where we are with Atlantic Avenue.
Well, thank you for your courtesy and your patience with me, and have a good evening.
It's fine. You can see that we're a very thorough board. We asked,
I do
Madam-
understand. I do
Madam
understand.
Chair, before you move on, would you like to hear whether or not there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak?
oh, yeah, you're right. Thank you for reminding me. We do have an open public hearing. So if there's any member of the public that would now like to, now that we have all this information out there and we have a plan for moving forward, if there's any members of the public that would like to weigh in, please raise your hand, and William will push whatever buttons he has to push.
Hi.
Hello, you can speak, please.
Yay, I got through. I am the owner of 888.
Oh, hi. Could you give us
Hi.
your name, please? It's not coming
Yes.
up on the screen.
It is Sarit Rozicki.
Okay.
And the reason the third system was there was not for groundwater, but actually to be nice and to collect water that's from the grass. So to keep it on my property so it wouldn't cross over to other properties. It was just lawn. It was water from the lawn water.
Okay. I guess, so that's kind of what we thought it.
That was it. That
It's
was
wet back there, so.
that was it.
If water puddles after the rain or anything like that, it not necessarily.
It was just right.
It's just wet.
It just in case it's not even because when we built the house, the other systems actually take the roof water. So this was just to be safe, just to sort of do extra.
Okay, like pants and suspenders.
That's it.
Okay.
I can't tell you how hard it was to like press buttons to get on.
Sorry,
No, I was trying to like get people's attention.
Right.
But thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's just have the engineers confirm or put that in writing, memorialize that, and in the meantime, then the staff can work on a resolution for the next meeting. I'm assuming we can get everything done by the deadline for the paperwork to be in.
Yes.
Okay. Any other members of the public would like to speak on this?
Madam Chair, I don't see anyone else.
Okay, then we can actually close the public hearing if everybody's comfortable with that. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, Lou,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Cindy,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Okay,
Thank you very much.
we have Mr. Verney rejoin us. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience with us. We're out of practice. We took a month off.
Not at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, and there is an error on the agenda and says that this is a continued public hearing. This item, there was no public hearing opened on it, although we did allow public input and we had the public speaking on it, especially the neighbors who were affected by some of the changes made. It's the property 620 West Boston Post Road, and it's regarding the landscaping plan that was approved in 2016. That was not followed by the applicant, and the village and the applicant have been in discussions for some time with regards to how to remedy that situation. And they were last working with the planning board's consultant, Susan Oakley, to come up with a land that everyone feels is hopefully acceptable to the planning board. And that's where we are tonight with a new landscape plan. So if the applicant wants to step forward to present it to us, and then we will ask Susan, who sent us a memo and would have been posted on the website for anyone who wanted to see, but can also speak to it. By the way, to the staff, the two files that were sent to us before the board, which was the approved site plan from 2016 and the proposed plan, I couldn't open the approved plan. It says it was corrupted and is irretrievable. I don't know if anybody else had that problem with it, but I did have a copy of it in my file because this application first came before us when we still were receiving paper and we were meeting in person. So that was not a problem. Okay, do we have the applicant's representatives or landscape architect here? Or we have, I see the applicant. Is there anyone else, Mr. Brescher, who you would like to present this to us?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Hold on one second. Good evening, how are you? Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so I'm just basically following up. We did meet with Susan Oakley at the site, and we did a walkthrough, and we pretty much came up, we think, with a plan that was recently submitted to her office, basically agreeing with the proposed revisions to make this an acceptable plan for the village of Mamaroneck, including but not limited to removal of the rear white pines, removal of all the stones with the exception of one, which we are going to, as the plan shows, dated August 3rd, put certain specimens in front of that to kind of break up the look. And this will also block the utilities that are in front of the development. And so by going back and forth, I think we're very close to a plan that is something that she's looked at, I think, and obviously she'll comment, and that is appropriate for the site at this point.
So the proposed plan that we have now dated August 3rd is more in keeping with the approved plan from 2016. Is that a fair statement?
It's the only reason why it's not a fair statement is the original plan was probably a lot less landscaping than this one. It was very sparse, that plan, so on and so forth. And Susan, I'm sure will agree, this is much more built out landscaping plan than the original one. But be that as it may, we want to have a more built out plan.
Will, can you mute yourself? Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm done.
Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Brescher.
Yeah, so to answer your question, the original landscaping plan versus this one's far superior as far as additional planting, so on and so forth. If we just went back and never went in front of this board and did the original landscaping plan, it will look the plan will look very sparse in the front. It will look empty. But you know, we're in agreement because we're property is being kept, and we like to move forward with the plans that's before you, that we think will be beneficial both for the Village of Mamaroneck and to us.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ms. Oakley, is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Well, since 2016, there have been some, if you compare the 2016 plan to what is now being presented in the August 3rd plan, there were some concessions made and improvements made. And I believe that this is a more appropriate and more aesthetically pleasing design for the front. So with a couple of changes that need to be made to the plan, I think that based on the history of this application, I think that those should be submitted before approval. That would be my recommendation to the board. But most of the other changes have been made, as you can see from my August 31st memo, with a few items that still need correcting.
Okay, Mr. Brescher, did you see the August 31st memo? I don't know if it was shared with you, one of your staff people.
Our office has been asking for it, I believe, whether they got it or not, they did not bring it to my attention. I have not seen it. I think as late as like today or yesterday, we had asked Mr. Long for it, but we never got a response. So I was not.
It's
a
probably,
copy of it.
it's probably on the village website for the agenda.
Oh, okay.
You
Well,
can
I
just
did not.
download it.
Yeah.
But
It's definitely on the village website.
I mean, you shouldn't have to go to the website to get things. We should share with you, but it's just the two items, Susan, about the ILEX. It's just there's one existing ILEX, so we're just adjusting, reflecting the plan and the plant list to correctly reflect that there would be one transplant and 3 new plants. You're doing on 4 plants, right? So that's
Is
just
that basically the extent of it? I mean.
And then there's.
I would refer you to the memo.
Okay.
I don't think it should be communicated through the meeting.
I think you should look at the memo, but it doesn't look like anything very serious.
No,
Right.
it's simple
It's-
plan
right.
notations and corrections. My intent with this, because there already was a complete planting, and they want to use many of the plants in this final iteration, that it has to be very clear on this planting plan what is being transplanted and what is new. So one of the notations that needs to be made is what is being transplanted, and that all those items should appear on the plant list, whether they're new, transplanted, or clarify as a whole.
That's on a memo as well.
Yes.
So this doesn't sound like there's anything contentious left, and we can also.
Can I get to that folder? I'm fine. Susan, thank you. Thank the applicant for working, long and hard on these plantings. To leave, I understand the rocks are leaving the site, which I think is an excellent idea. That one huge boulder, which again, from the rendering, the photographs that we have, isn't actually hiding the electrical panels in any way. I think that just ruins the front of the building. Is there any way you could just lay it down? I mean, it's sticking up. It's just this wart coming out of the property with nothing else that big and heavy on either side. So I'm sure it would be very expensive to remove it. Not sure how it got there to begin with, but I think that's really ruining what everybody's worked so hard to achieve.
I would agree with you that it does not block the meter bank completely. And that's what the 4 holly shrubs, vertical holly shrubs, were partially blocking it also. I think that's a decision that the board needs to make. I was making a concession to the applicant so that they wouldn't have to pay for removal of everything and that it was to the back left, but I definitely defer to the planning board's decision about whether to retain that final one or not.
Will
None
there
of
be
them
pla-
have been retained as, have been removed as of now, so.
There will be plants planted in front of it, correct?
Yes.
Not to hide it, my recommendation was to accent it, because what's the point of leaving it there if you're gonna block it completely?
Right, right. So the plants that will go in front of it will be lower growing plants.
And around it, you know, yes,
Right,
there'll be some
right.
behind, some on the side, some in
Right,
front.
right, right. Um, I'd have to, I don't know, I'd have to look at it, but I mean, it's hard for me to envision it because there's so many other large boulders on the site right now.
I'm trying to see if I can pull up a,
We have photographs of existing conditions. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's the huge one. Yeah, I got these pictures, right. One of the neighbors gave them to us, right? But you got the staircase on the right and the boulder on the left.
Yeah, but the staircase is the same color, you know, anyway, that's just me. Maybe nobody else agrees with me, and that's fine.
Kathy, is that the boulder on the far left in the new diagram of A3?
I believe it's the boulder on the far left, right.
And there were also some trees there that were tall and of some concern to the neighbor?
Yeah, yes, I think there was everything, those things have been replaced, right?
Yes.
And we did get a communication from one of the neighbors. I think it was the gas station that the pines were starting to grow over onto their property, but that's being replaced. And
Susan, was that issue addressed? If I could ask Susan, Kathy, was the issue about the screening to the neighbor to the south on the left side of the plan, was that addressed?
I believe I had a conversation or received correspondence from Jerry Barbario saying that it had been resolved.
Okay, good.
And there was concern about driving down Rockland and the sight lines because of the new with the new trees that were put in. But if we're changing that, then that should be addressed as well. But when we finish discussion here, we'll open it back up to the public to see if anybody has anything to add with regards to this new plan. But until you actually see it, it's going to be hard to envision. And I understand that. I'm having difficulty, but let's see, you'd have to look and see what the maximum heights are on some of the plants on the plan are. I don't know, the boulder doesn't bother me personally as much, but that's just me.
I have a photo I can share, if I can share my screen.
I think there's a button in the middle of the bottom of your screen that says share screen.
I'm disabled.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, go ahead, you can do it now.
I can't hear you. You're breaking up.
William said you could do it now.
It's saying that I have to, one sec. Can everyone see?
No.
No.
Not yet.
No.
It's showing up on my end. Oh, wait a sec. Let me try again.
Oh, here we go.
There we go.
There we go. Okay.
One sec. So this is probably January, this photo was taken. So you can see, if you want me to zoom out of this image, I can do that. But the boulder on, this is, can you see the cursor?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's the boulder that was to remain. This is the one single holly tree that is indicated on what needs to change, because there were indicated to be 4 there to block the bank. So there are more shrubs going back here, hydrangeas, I believe, and some lower evergreen grasses in front.
And the other boulders are being removed.
All the rest of the boulders are being removed.
You know, with the staircase there and the stairs going up on the other side, it doesn't bother me as you know.
I agree with you, Kathy.
Oh, thank you.
Well, I'm gonna split the vote. I agree with Cindy. I think all those rocks are ridiculous and they should be removed.
Yeah, I think they are ridiculous. But I think once
What-
you take
what
away,
relationship to the building? I mean, it makes no sense.
they were found on the property. So they were there before the.
Well,
Rich, I think all the other rocks should be removed.
Well,
I
they
don't
are,
have a problem with one.
They all
They're-
are being removed, yeah.
and if
who wants a rock
if
on the front lawn?
So if anybody wants any rocks to enhance their garden,
Well, that's why I thought if somebody toppled it over, it wouldn't be so prominent, because you're putting plantings in front of the meters anyway. So you'd have a rock there. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
it could go on its side. Yeah,
just push it back.
yeah.
Drop it over.
If you can, if there's no manhole or any other anything behind it.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I agree with
Yeah.
that, Cindy.
Yeah. Okay. You don't have to pay to remove it. You just have to soften it, mitigate it a little bit.
Then I would suggest more of the vertical holly trees to block that meter bank.
Yes,
Right now, there's 4 on the plan. I would suggest more,
yeah.
That's good.
at least
Yeah,
6 to 7.
Take
So-
them away from the gas station side and put them in front of there.
Those are white pines over there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Susan. Mr. Brescia, do you have anything you want to say to that?
I'm looking to come to a conclusion with this at this point.
So are we.
Get the work done, obviously. So
Right.
I'm in agreement with laying the rock down. We're removing the remaining boulders. I'll look at the memorandum. I'll make those final adjustments, but I just want to know what the mechanics are and finally getting a plan that's approved by this board so we can officially schedule this and get this done. I don't know if a resolution has to be put together. So if you could just let me know, because the architect of landscape architect of record couldn't make it tonight, and nor could Christie, my attorney. So I'm just trying to understand what the mechanics are so we can get going. Now is planting season, and if we're going to do it, now's, I guess, the time to accomplish.
So there are some minor amendments that need to be made to the proposed plan. So there'll be another version of it on Susan's memo plus what we said tonight.
That's what I recommend.
Right.
Another
If you
plan.
get, I think that we're all in agreement. If you get those to us before the deadline for our next meeting, we'll ask the staff to prepare a resolution to be approved at our next meeting. But before we close this out, we're inviting comments by the public because they're affected by this, even though we didn't have a public hearing. So if there's any member of the public that wants to comment on this, now's your time to raise your hand or call in, and William will field the push buttons, whatever it is that we do around here nowadays.
I don't see anyone wishing to speak.
Okay, all right. I think we have a plan, and I think we all wish to bring this to conclusion as well. And I want to also, on behalf of the entire planning board, thank you, Mr. Brescia, and thank you, Susan, for your work on this over the summer. And we'll make the planting season. You'll get ready before the planting season ends.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, good night. Thank you very much. Okay, this brings us to the next item on the agenda. We have a new application from 652 Shore Acres Drive for a site plan and a wetlands permit. Before anyone speaks on this, we would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table to open a public hearing for both the wetlands permit and the site plan approval. Cindy,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Lou,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I vote yes. I like how Lou speaks, but his mouth doesn't move. I don't know if everybody sees the same thing I see, but his mouth doesn't move. Okay, anyone here from the applicant to present this application to the planning board?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Tony Joffrey. I'm a member of the law firm Cuddy & Fader, 445 Hamilton Avenue, White Plains, New York, on behalf of the applicants, Caroline Young and Stephen Trachtenberg, who I believe are calling this meeting this evening. I'm also joined by Michael Lewis and Brandon Stewart from ML Architects, Michael Stein from Hudson Engineering, and Katie Haas from William County Associates. And Mr. Long, we will be sharing our screen at some point, each of the professionals, in order to work through the plans, if that's okay. So, Madam Chair, as long as letting the rest of our team in, I'll just give a brief overview of the proposal that's before you. As you indicated, this is an application for a wetlands permit and site plan approval for an existing residence that's located at 652 Shore Acres Drive in the village. The premises abuts Mamaroneck Harbor and is classified in the R10 one-family zoning district. The premises is currently improved right now with an existing home, and we're proposing some additions and modifications to the existing premises. We're proposing the addition of a second story to the existing.
We're losing, you're breaking up a little bit, Mr. Joffrey. We're losing you.
Okay.
Okay, now you're back.
Okay. You have to make sure that my son stays off the Xbox while I'm presenting to you.
Sorry.
So as I began to say, we're proposing an addition to the second story of the existing garage for use as an office, construction of a breezeway connecting the house to the garage, a new pool with accessory fireplace, spa, pool cabana. All this in order to make the improvements and to make this application better. We're installing pervious replacement decks, new stormwater management infrastructure, new wetland buffer plantings, and we're going to be removing the existing patio and impervious deck from the wetland buffer. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Stewart, who can walk you through the plans.
Yes, thanks, Tony, for the introduction, and thanks to the members of the board for your time and attention. My name is Brandon Stewart of Michael Lewis Architects. And I can either share my screen or just refer you to the rendering that we prepared if you all have it in front of you, whatever is easier.
We get our documents digitally now. Not everyone, as you can see, one of our members is on a phone. Not everyone is able to see them. So
for the benefit
it's best you share your screen. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
So let me see if I can move this up. Okay. So in general, and Tony did a very good job of already kind of enumerating the various improvements proposed. Just for clarity for the public and for the members of the board, basically what you're seeing in black and white is are portions of the existing structures on the site, and the stuff that is in color is generally what's being proposed. The property is located on the bend of the river right before the Berry Avenue Bridge at one of the more heavily wooded lots on Shore Acres Drive. The project consists of, as Tony explained, the removal of an impervious stone patio and impervious wood deck that used to reside here, if you can see where my cursor is pointing, that was both impervious in terms of stormwater, took up available flood volume beyond the flood line, and is also currently non-compliant with regards to the side setback. And that entire structure at the end of the house is proposed to be removed. Also, the existing one-story garage on the other side of the lot is currently existing non-conforming with regards to the side setback. It's proposed to be modified to become compliant as well with regards to the side setback. In terms of the new structures that are proposed, as Tony explained, we're proposing an in-ground pool with an associated pervious wood deck and a one-story cabana, both of which are fully elevated above the required flood elevation, 2 feet above the base flood elevation. There's a breezeway connector piece that connects the existing house to the existing garage that also houses a stair providing access to the second-story office addition above the garage. You can, and one last thing to mention is also there's a portion of the existing house is compliant in terms of its finished floor levels being healthily above the required 2 feet above the base flood elevation, with the exception of the family room, which resides underneath this one-story roof here. That's also proposed to be rebuilt, the floor of the structure, I should say, to be rebuilt to be also compliant with the flood requirements. And then you can refer to our plans to see our analysis illustrating the net benefit in terms of the flood volume that we're removing versus what we're adding. There's a net benefit to provide more flood volume availability for floodwaters to recede beneath the proposed structures than what currently is available on the site. There's also an analysis of the impervious coverage that's being removed and also added, all of which is fully compliant with regards to the zoning. The FAR is also compliant with regards to the zoning. And as I mentioned previously, all of the setbacks are compliant with regards to the zoning. Other improvements that are proposed in terms of the site engineering, stormwater management, and landscaping will be addressed by other members of the team. But overall, just one last comment is the owners having given us all the marching orders to really try to preserve the unique qualities of the site and make improvements to as many of the areas as we can from an environmental perspective. It's been very important for them to be sensitive to all of the forces at play, including something we're very happy to see, which is them telling us from day one to protect this large tree that's located at the bend of the river that's visible from various portions of the river and other properties. With that, I guess I'll turn the time to Michael Stein and William Kenny and Associates to address the other site considerations.
Okay, good evening, Michael Stein, President of Hudson Engineering, with engineers of record for the project. Brendan, if you just drop off yours and so I can share my screen.
While Michael's waiting to get his screen up, I'll just add a couple of points real quickly. We did receive correspondence from SHPO on June 22nd that indicated no historic properties, including archaeological and/or historic resources, will be affected by this undertaking. And we also received a new letter of no jurisdiction from DEC. And Michael has his screen up now.
So what we were looking at is we're providing treatment for all the new impervious surfaces that are coming in, both the patios over here on the side, the patio that wraps around, the water runoff coming from the pool, the new addition, and we're bringing that in, providing both water quality and quantity control, bringing that into basically a Coltech infiltration system. At the same time, again, part of our marching orders and our discussions with our client is that we're looking at making an overall improvement to the site, an overall improvement to water quality leaving the site. So part of what we did was we collected all the runoff coming down the driveway, both discharging towards the house and around the house down to over the seawall, but as well as any water that was running off onto shore acres. And we also put that into an infiltration system underneath the driveway, another Coltech system. We performed percolation and deep hole testing at both locations and witnessed very favorable results at both locations. As well as we provided a full sediment erosion control plan that makes sure during construction we're protecting any of the runoff or any of the runoff coming from the site from entering into the harbor. If anyone has any questions, if not, I'll then turn it over to Bill Kenny.
So I believe Katie Haas is here from Bill Kenny's office.
Sorry about that.
Good evening. I'll share my screen now. My name is Katie Haas. I'm a landscape architect at William Kenny Associates. Can everybody see the planting plan shown on my screen currently?
Yes.
Thank you. Again, my name is Katie Haas. I'm a landscape architect at William Kenny Associates. We're an ecological and landscape architecture firm comprised of wetland and soil scientists, landscape architects, certified ecologists, and an ISA certified arborists. William Kenny, the founder and principal of the firm, is a professional wetland scientist and landscape architect licensed in the state of New York. Bill Kenny delineated the wetlands and supervised the preparation of the coastal natural resource assessment and the planting plan. Carolyn Matthews, an ecologist and ISA certified arborist, assisted in the preparation of the coastal natural resource assessment and prepared the tree assessment and preservation plan for the property. No freshwater wetlands were found on the property. Existing tidal wetlands were located off-site north of the seawall within the adjacent east basin of Mamaroneck Harbor. The existing seawall demarcates the wetland boundary. We find there to be no impacts to the wetlands as no improvements are proposed within the off-site wetlands. Protective measures are included during and following construction to prevent off-site wetland impacts, which Michael Stein spoke to. The wetland buffer will be preserved and enhanced by preserving mature native vegetation and trees with and proposing native shrubs and ground covers around the site. Carolyn Matthews, our ISA certified arborist, assessed the 45-inch pin oak in the rear of the property and rated it a level 2 risk in fair condition. This tree has substantial habitat value and is being preserved through the inclusion of a tree protection plan. The construction access is proposed along the existing driveway, which preserves other mature native trees in the front yard that also have substantial habitat value. In regards to the planting plan, all proposed plantings on the site are native, including a mix of large shrubs, perennial grasses, and ground covers. And due to its location, one non-native crabapple tree is proposed to be removed on the site due to the proposed construction activities. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or pass it back off to Tony. Thank you.
So Madam Chair, that concludes our presentation. We have a couple of items that we'd like to go through, but we defer to your board if you have any initial questions.
Okay, anybody have any questions? Before we get started, I live down the street from this house, just so you know, I'm your neighbor. I'm on the other side of Barry, but I do walk past this house every day with my dogs. But I'm obviously not impacted financially in any way and have no reason to recuse myself from this. I have no financial impact or anything like that. So I'm a little more familiar with the property, the front of it at least, and the surrounding area. But anybody have any questions with regards to what we've heard so far?
No, I would applaud the application for only, for trying to keep as many trees on the site. Usually, or sometimes applications to get to us, the trees are already gone. And so that's why this is unusual. And
right, thank you.
I think we appreciate that.
As a person who added trees to her yard, I thank you. Anybody else have any questions? What's going to happen now is we'll type this action for SECRA purposes, and then you'll go on to HCZM for lengthy review. Maybe not so lengthy, but a thorough review at HCZM, where there are likely to be some changes, tweaks, whatever, and then you'll come back to us when you finish with them. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more questions at the time. We tend to let HCZM do their thing before we dive in, so because things will change. But anybody want to say anything before we talk about SECRA? And
I just have one comment. And I also applaud the application. It was very thorough. They're keeping the tree canopy except for a 26-inch non-native crabapple. The native plantings are a move in the right direction for any coastal development. There's just, if there will be tweaks and additions, I think that giving more information about the green roof and what is intended for that would complete the application landscape.
When we come back before you, we'll have a more thorough narrative for you on that.
and I have a lot of milkweed if you want some. It's just growing all over my yard. And a lot of monarchs too. Anybody else? Is there any member of the public that would like to speak before we proceed with SECRA on this?
Madam Chair, there is.
No?
Then one person, hold on 1 second.
No, there's somebody, Mr. Ferrante wants to speak.
Hill Street, Glen Tippett.
Okay. Hi, Glenn.
Hello?
Hey, you're there. You're with us, Glenn. We can hear you.
Yeah, I'd first like to formally welcome Will to the Village of Mamaroneck. I hope you're enjoying the experience. Kind of a crazy summer to join us. I want to welcome the board back from a long summer, and I'm a little bit mad at you. You did such an efficient job today that I got no comments on anything, so.
Yes, Glenn's test.
Thank you.
Glenn, it's years of experience of dealing with you. Bye. Okay. Anyone else want to speak? Mr. Ferrante, who I think is actually a neighbor and would like to say something.
Okay, this is Paul Ferrante. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to speak up and let you know that I'm a neighbor of both Stephen and Caroline. They've been thoughtful neighbors. We spoke throughout the planning process and definitely support what they've proposed here and wanted you all to know.
Okay. Thank you very much. You're dealing with your own project. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a recommendation to type this as a type 2 action under SECRA, as it is a one-family private house, which basically automatically gets a type 2 determination from SECRA. Anybody want to discuss this in any way, or just make a motion to type it?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. So we have a motion on the table to type this under secret as a type 2. John?
Yes.
Lou?
Yes. See my
Richard?
lips?
No.
Yeah.
Cindy?
Yes.
And I vote yes. No, Lou, your face doesn't move when you speak. Now you're moving.
Many years, many years.
Okay. He's a ventriloquist.
Yes.
So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong here, because it's been a while since I've chaired this meeting. That's it for us tonight. They can move on, the applicant can move on to HCZM. Anybody else?
Sure, I just have one request, if the board will entertain, please. So we submitted an escrow request, of $14,000 this week in connection with this application. In review of based upon the escrow acknowledgement form, this application was classified as a major new site plan, which requires an escrow of $9,500, as well as a consistency, obviously for the HCZM, a deposit of $1,500, and a wetland permit deposit $3,000, all amounting to $14,000. There's no determination and no definition in the code on what classifies a major versus a minor versus an amended site plan. A minor site plan has a reduced escrow deposit of $7,500 compared with $9,500, and a site plan amendment of $4,500. I respectfully submit that a $14,000 escrow for an application like this upfront is very substantial. Most other communities require a $2,500 to $3,500 escrow, which will be replenished as the application goes on and once the escrow gets depleted to a certain amount. The code does permit us to ask you for discretion in modifying the building inspector's determination, which is based upon this form, which is part of your record. And with respect, the major site plan and the wetlands permit amounts to $12,500 escrow fees just for this review board to review the same plans. So we respectfully request if that $14,000 escrow can be reduced to something in the neighborhood of $5,000. And again, once it depletes to a certain amount, we would certainly replenish. But to have $14,000 sitting in escrow for an application like this type 2 action for a single family home, we respectfully submit is pretty extreme.
Okay, thank you. I am not familiar with this section of the code, and this is the first time something like this has come up since I've been on the planning board. Normally, the escrow is handled by the administrative staff, village manager's office, and the clerk treasurer, and it doesn't even come before us. So if the code says you can address us and we can do something about it, we'll look into it. Okay, that's the best I can do tonight because this is new, unless somebody from the board has any more knowledge about this. Especially John, you've been on the board longer than I have. Has this ever come up before? Have you participated in a reduction of escrow prior?
I think only once or twice in the 5 years I was on the board.
All right, so there is
Historically, applications like this wouldn't require site plan review and did not require the deposit of a $9,500 escrow. It would only be the $3,000 wetland permit escrow. So the $9,000, that's why historically this board has not seen requests like this. And the way the code reads, it says at the initial meeting of each reviewing board with respect to the application, so this is the initial meeting before your board, the reviewing board will review the determinations made by the building inspector, which is this form that you have in your record, with respect to the deposit for payment for professional services, and confirm or modify the building inspector's determination. So again, respectfully submit that this $9,500 and $3,000 review by this board is very extreme. And we're asking for a courtesy just to reduce it to an appropriate amount. And once it again gets depleted to a certain amount, we would have to replenish that escrow account. And that's normal.
Okay, Mr. Joffrey, we understand what you're asking us to do. The form that you have in your hand, we do not have in our files. It may be in the village's files, but it has not been conveyed to the planning board. As I said, the escrow is usually completely invisible to us. So we're going to have to gather the paperwork and take a look at it and get back to you, okay? And we can only deliberate in public meetings, so the earliest we could do something would be at our next scheduled meeting. But if we gather all the paperwork, we could, and gather a review of the code and talk to the village manager and the clerk treasurer, we could basically have all the information we need in order to make a determination at the next meeting. Is that acceptable to you?
I understand you haven't had the opportunity to review this. We're, as indicated, we'll be going to HCZM. Would the board be able to consider this at your September 23rd meeting?
We
Even
hope so.
While we're proceeding with
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no reason why we can't. Correct. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong there, but yeah, this is something, obviously, as Mr. Burney said, it's happened before. He's been on the planning board for more than 5 years, and we have to, the rest of us haven't done it, so we just have to get the information in front of us and speak with the people who made the determination.
And Kathy, as chair, you're correct that we've reviewed it with staff after the request was made, but we didn't make it on the night. Although
we can't make it on the fly. Yeah,
Mr. Jeffrey's following the statute, but he has to bring it up at the first meeting. So he's following the statute.
Yeah, you're right, and and we won't let it fall between the cracks. And we understand that what you're doing is a large undertaking, and every dollar counts. Get it? Right. Okay. I don't want to piss off my new neighbors. All right. Okay. We good now? Did we do everything we were supposed to do here? I think so. Okay.
Yep.
Let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And it's a good segue into talking about trees. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have before us the draft tree ordinance, revised tree ordinance that the tree committee and the board of trustees has been working on for a long time. When I first joined the board of trustees in 2000 as a trustee, this was on our list of things to do. That was 20 years ago, and so we have a draft, yay! It's been going on for a really long time. The board of trustees has requested comments from the planning board. The planning board is impacted by some of the changes in this. Some of the work we do is site plan review and things like that, some of the changes and whatnot. So the purpose of this discussion is to, we don't need that on the screen, William. You can take that down, please. Thank you. The purpose of this isn't for a consensus, for a response to the board. Each member of the planning board is also free as an individual and resident of the village of Mamaroneck to submit any personal comments they may want to submit to the board of trustees throughout this process. But this is for us to try to come to agreement on some sort of a response to the overall concepts of the tree ordinance and then any specific questions we may have. Like I said, 20 years ago, this was being discussed as something that we needed to do. So I, for one, applaud this board for moving it forward and the tree committee for moving it forward. I do have some questions and concerns about it, but why don't, hopefully you all have read this and hopefully we can come to some consensus on this without taking up a lot of time.
I agree. We worked on this for a long time. The tree committee has really stuck with it for years and years and years. So
Yeah.
I really hope that the village board takes this law and passes it under whatever iteration we get. Because how many times do we see an application and it's been, all the trees have been cut and the code says
we have one now. They cut
supposed
down
to
all
do
the
that,
trees. Yeah.
but they cut the trees first and then they come for site plan.
Right.
So if we can stop some of that, that would be terrific. How do you want to do this, Kathy, do you want to go?
Well, I mean, we can go through it, I guess. You know, the first thing is the purpose. I mean, we can talk about the whole concept of a tree ordinance and then dive down into the detail, you know, go from greater to smaller. And we also have some comments from William, and we also have some comments from Susan Oakley as well, pointing us at certain things. And so they can feel free to jump in at any time. Your comments are certainly welcome to us. We do have things in writing from you. Purpose, the definitions, I think, are questionable on some of them, but I mean, does anybody want to, first of all, start off by saying they don't think a tree ordinance is necessary? I personally agree that we're one of the few communities around here that does not have a tree ordinance. And it's a shame that we don't. So I think it's a good thing that somebody's finally working on this. Obviously, Ms. Goldstein just said that she agrees. Anybody else want to speak to that issue before we start diving into the details? No? Okay. So at least the first point of consensus is we agree that the village needs a tree ordinance. And we thank the board for addressing it and hope that they pass it soon. Okay. The purpose, and I found the background material that, William, that you sent us, that booklet on trees, and this whole section on a tree ordinance, the beginning of it where it said your purpose is very important. So I read this purpose with that in mind. We do have other protections, so we don't have to have the tree ordinance have everything. We have stormwater protections and wetlands protections, so it doesn't have to be in the tree ordinance. So thank you for sending us that. And I thought that I didn't have any comments at all or any problems with the purpose as stated here. It's been probably wordsmithed to death. Anybody have any? Like Christy is smiling.
Like the whole law has been wordsmithed to death.
Yeah.
To death. Yeah, well, it's been written by a committee. I mean, it's hard to write things by a committee, as we know.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's even hard to write a memo by a committee, much less something like this. I mean, we just wrote a secret finding document by committee. Okay, definitions. I read through these very carefully, and these are more like consistency with other definitions of other places in the code, which I did not get into any consistency with any other sections of the code. I'm assuming the legal team did that when you wrote it, that you checked things. But I do have a couple of where words are used and not defined. So I don't know, we can do this like we did Hampshire. Page 2, starting with A, anybody have any?
I think I'm having PTSD if you're going to do that.
Hey, we just read all those minutes. It all came, sort of right back to me. So I'm going back into this mode here.
I have nothing till page 3.
I don't have anything till page 3 either.
Can I interrupt? Sorry, very quickly. I just want to confirm.
Please.
William, you are documenting this, correct? As part of a memorandum to send to the Board of Trustees?
I am too. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that it was being documented.
Yeah. Okay. Protected tree or shrub definition. Cindy, do you have anything before that?
No. I mean, and this is maybe nothing to be dealt with in this code section, but the reference on B, tree located in a wetland or wetland adjacent area as defined in section 192-2 of the code. If you actually go to 192-2 of the code, it's a really lousy definition of wetlands, and I don't think anything ever will apply. So I think that's just a note to make that has nothing to do with this law necessarily, but our wetlands law stinks, and I think we know that. So
I think that's been pointed out to us in various, that our laws stink, but yeah, right.
Well, that one in particular is bad. So I also, in E, it says a significant tree or shrub, which is defined below in the definition. So it's a little weird, but I get it. It's a long definition. So that's all I had on that page.
Yeah, and F on that same section where it talks about protected native plants for our region, but it doesn't define what our region is. But I think our region is defined by the Department of Environmental Conservation. So I just think that should be clarified because there are different, you can look at different documents to determine like planting region, this region, that region. There's no definition for the word region. Okay. On right of way, right underneath that, right of way is defined as the unpaved area owned by the village, county, or state adjacent to the paved surface of a village, county, or state road. But at the bottom of the page, we define a street tree as a tree located within the village right of way. So are we not dealing with the trees that are in other right of ways? Like they basically are unregulated if it's the county or state right of way, it's just the village right of way we have jurisdiction over? Question to anybody? Then that's a question for the.
Good question.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Page 4.
Yeah, so I had 3 definitions that don't occur in the law. Substantially wooded lot, tree contractor, and tree topping. I did a search and I didn't find them anywhere. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I think it's from a previous iteration of.
Oh, so the word substantially wooded lot is not used anywhere in the law?
I didn't find it. I didn't find it doing a search, so it may be worth checking, but if we're going to define a term, we should use it. And if not, let's get rid of it.
I agree.
That term is the staff recommendation from the planning department, from planning staff, and that term came from the book that I sent to all the board members.
Okay.
Okay, but if we're not using it, we shouldn't bother having the definition there. And I had a problem with the definition of tree contractor because
I don't think we have to worry about it because we don't refer to it.
Right. If it's not referred to it, but okay. So which one is substantially wooded lot, tree contractor, and
tree topping?
Tree topping.
Again, somebody should check me, but I did a global.
Well, tree topping actually should be in the law because people do top trees, and it shouldn't be done. I mean, we just were having a discussion about that the first time 620 Boston Post Road came before us because he proposed to top the pines as a way of managing them, and I can show you pictures of pines that have been topped by storms that are right outside my window right here, and show you how bare the top of the tree looks because that's not a way to deal with trees.
So that would go in the memo. It's just with a recommendation to deal with tree topping.
Right. I mean, I've seen people cut down village trees in the wintertime to nothing and let them regrow again in the spring. Okay, the article on tree committee. I think we're just copying the old tree committee.
Before we move on to Article 2, I just have a comment about the tree preservation plan, which is referred to a number of times in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
This comes up a lot with site plans, and
which came up tonight. Right.
It's not usually a separate plan. It's often what trees are going to be preserved or what trees are going to be removed are often part of the landscape plan.
Right.
And the fact that this is referred to so often, I think the planning board might want to consider when one is necessary and one isn't.
You mean as a separate standalone document as opposed to just being on the site plan?
The only reason I'm bringing it up is because it's referred to so many times in here. So there should be a parallel between the law and what we are asking applicants for regarding landscaping.
Or we can define a tree preservation plan as either a standalone plan or as a a section of a landscape plan in conjunction with other documents or something, and just
Part of the site plan.
definition. Right, right. It doesn't have to be, but you're right, Susan. It makes it sound like it's a separate plan, but it never is. It's always just part of the landscape plan.
Yeah, I believe it was
Most often that's,
plan.
I'm sorry, Christy.
I was just saying that I believe it was meant to be a separate plan.
So
Right,
we have
and
to
it
now-
rarely is. It's very unusual that there's a separate plan unless it's a large piece of property.
Because we really need to see the tree plan superimposed on the site plan.
The site plan, right.
Do it in a vacuum. Makes no sense.
William, you're really breaking up. We don't get it.
Can't hear you.
So if the way I read
No,
it,
it's
really.
no, you sound very garbled.
all right, let me call in.
Sorry. Okay, so the intent is to ask applicants now for a separate tree plan in addition to the site plan and the landscape plan.
If I remember
But
correctly, I'm so
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but if I remember correctly, I think it's for specific trees on the lot, and that's why it's separate.
But we get that as part of the landscape plan. They give us a list of the trees that are staying, the trees that are cutting, and the trees that they're adding. I think if we change the definition, then the tree preservation plan can be part of a landscape plan or site plan, but should include this information.
Yes, and/or. It's
Right,
defined, it's
right.
defined here as a plan of property approved by the planning board in conjunction with a site plan.
Right.
So I think if the wording is just changed to say that it can be a separate plan, but it can also be incorporated.
Right.
But that
the most important thing is that it includes the contours of the entire plot of intervals not more than 2 feet, location, species, blah, 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 of all trees, 8 inches DBH or greater. So we get that information. We're just not getting it as a separate plan.
Not always, there's not always contours every 2 feet on a plan.
Right, but now
in fact, that's less common to have contours.
Well,
Because it costs more to get it surveyed for that.
Well, normally there are contours for stormwater issues on plans, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Whether they're 2 feet, I don't know, but.
Well, it should say 2 feet or less. Not more than 2 feet, not more than 2 feet. So that's 2 feet or less. I don't think this is complicated. I think we can basically just change the definition and say that this can be part of a separate document or a standalone. But we need to see it as part of the site plan and part of everything else.
Or landscape plan.
And-
You
yeah,
mean
right.
multiple documents.
The tree plan has to be one layer on top of other things we see for the site.
It can be, but it also can be separate.
Depending on what else the applicant is thinking about doing. Yeah.
But
right.
I still think we need to see the tree plan on the site plan, even if there's
Absolutely.
a separate plan. I don't want to see a separate, document without seeing the whole thing, I guess.
But what if they're not doing a site plan review? Because this says with a site plan and subdivision plan.
And subdivision.
And or. Right. Because sometimes we're doing a subdivision and a site plan and not a subdivision. And like today, we're only doing a site plan for Shore Acres Drive because they're more than a half an acre. There are times when we're doing projects that are less than a half an acre and have significant trees on them. Okay. Okay, so this is, okay. All right, we're good? All right. William, is this you calling in so that you're on the phone?
Yeah, that's me. Yes. Yeah, I can hear.
All right, now we can hear you better also.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
The only thing I would say is that my read of the draft ordinance was when it spoke about a tree plan. To me, it read more like it was more of a village-wide tree preservation plan, as opposed to something that dealt specifically to a particular site. That
That's
was
not
my
what the
view.
definition says. The definition is
It says
part of a
planning
site plan.
board.
Right.
There-
To be
there
reviewed by
is
the
planning
planning.
board.
I think there is language in there about getting a tree inventory.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's separate though.
Yeah, it's separate, yeah. Okay. It's confusing. Okay, tree committee, again, this is, I think they're just carrying the old language from 1988, which may or may not work well. I don't know. It has the tree committee submitting.
I didn't even look at that because I figured the tree committee can spend time on their policies and procedures.
Yeah, right.
They know better.
Okay, but there is going to be a tree management plan. I think that's what, a tree management plan and a tree inventory for the village-wide. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Article 3, trees on public property, and basically spells out what people can and cannot do, which basically they can't do much. I was confused by page 6, number B, talking about treating a tree when that's covered in number 4, A4 above it about treating a tree. So I'm not sure why it's there unless it's for emphasis. It seemed to be redundant to me. But this A was pretty clear about injuring, destroying, treating a tree is not really defined in the definitions. Number A4 talks about pruning, spraying, treating cavities, fertilizing, cabling, embracing, otherwise treating or cause to be treated a tree on public property, which is not, no one can do. And then we say you can't treat a tree without defining tree, except it's defined above. So to me, that was just not necessarily totally redundant and
You're
not
right,
written as the one above it.
It looks redundant.
Yep.
Yeah. This is why you have more Google. That's why you have more people reading things. They pick things up.
I know, because when you keep working on the same thing, it's like it just
Right. But I think it A4 defines what treat means, where this one doesn't define what treat means.
Yeah.
Anybody else on anything on Article 3?
Nope.
Article 4, trees on private property, the maintenance on the trees on private property. I wish we could just remind people who have trees on their property that it's really good to maintain those trees, and that way you won't have them fall down during storms. If you trim them occasionally, like every 7 years, it would be really nice and it prevents storm damage. Nobody manages their trees. It's amazing to me. They're all down all over the place. But we can't mandate that.
You would be a great spokesperson for California because you're supposed to clear your shrubs to help so your yard doesn't burn. You would
Right.
slide right in there.
Or have gender reveal parties and start wildfires. But no, I mean, it's all over. It's all over. I mean, you buy a house, you move up from the city, you buy a house, have mature trees. People would cut them down because they don't want to deal with the leaves, or they unfortunately fall down during storms.
Kathy.
Yeah.
I have some questions on private property. I understand all the provisions regarding public property, but as far as private property and vis-a-vis what you're saying about storm damage, is there sections that say that no one's supposed to touch a protected tree, but if there's a dangerous tree, then either the village manager or I guess someone turning in their neighbor saying that they think that tree is dangerous. And so there's a little bit of a mixed message there is don't touch your trees because they're protected, but make sure that you remove them if they're dangerous. So are we setting up a situation where before you do anything to a tree that might come down during storm damage or might lose a limb or two during storm damage, that before you do anything with that tree, you have to go to the village manager to say it lost a few branches during a storm? Because I know where I lose some limbs every once in a while. And what's the process for losing a limb on a tree that may or may not be protected?
I don't,
We have to
I
go
don't,
to the
I
village
don't read
manager?
this as you can't maintain your trees. I read this as you can't remove your trees. You can't cut a tree down. But
Okay, well, it says or injure in any way.
If you're fixing storm damage, which I have a lot of, and they're, you know, big branches 100 feet up in the air that have sort of broken off, I'm not damaging the tree if I take it down. You know,
Okay.
I'm fixing a storm.
Yeah.
John, can you tell me what part of the code you're looking at? Because I wanted to see the language.
I guess it's
318,
chapter
8.
318A.
Proper tree pruning would not be considered injuring.
Yeah.
It's not an
Right.
injury.
Right, right. It's maintenance of trees and protocol. Every owner of private property on any which tree, shrub, or planting is located must at the property owner's expense, 1, prune the branches that obstruct or overhang any right of way. There's nothing about trees that are solely on your own property and not overhanging or obstructing or anything, you know,
Well,
or
it says,
if
it
you have
says
a
that,
normal, healthy tree, you can maintain it, prevent it from blowing down in the storm by thinning out the branches and pruning it and doing all the things you should be doing with a healthy tree.
no, what I'm
It's
pointing to
not
is
covered in here at all.
prohibitions, chapter 318.
Oh, your next
article,
section.
Oh, you
article,
passed us?
Yeah, he passed us, I think.
yeah.
Oh,
Removal of trees
318.
on private property.
Well, you can't remove trees, but you can.
No, Kathy, it says, no person may without permit issued by the building inspector either purposely or negligently engage in clear cutting, understood, or injure any protected tree on private property. So if I have a low hanging branch that I want to remove to open up my view of the sound, do I have to ask the building inspector if I can remove that branch? Is that injuring the tree?
Okay. Do you really want to move a branch because you want to see the sound better?
Well, let's go.
That's not a good enough reason to thin out a tree. If you're thinning out a tree to maintain it, I don't think you're injuring it in any way.
Why don't we go to the term injure? It's a defined term.
It's defined, right.
It's chopping the tree, scarring the tree, driving nails into the tree, stripping the bark, engaging
That may cause a tree to die.
Right.
Cutting a limb off is not injuring a tree.
I think that's responsible.
Okay.
Except if you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
So we don't have to
Like
call
you
the
are
building
here.
inspector to remove a limb.
No problem.
No. And if you're maintaining your trees and thinning them out on a regular basis, you don't have to get a permit. It's if you're removing a tree.
So in conformity in that section, 318A 8A talks about a permit issued by the building inspector. In other places, they're talking about the building inspector, his designee, or if it's an emergency, it's the village manager. So I just think we should add those 2 other titles every time we refer to a permit issued by the building inspector, his designee, or the village manager, because there are various permits issued by different people under different circumstances. And so I think in B, you'd be adding the same thing. The second sentence, the building inspector, his designee or village manager may grant a permit to remove a protected tree to the if, and then you meet the, you know what I'm saying? It's not clear who gets to do what to whom. It's not consistent.
Which section?
318 8A and B.
8A?
318-8.
Where it says
Oh,
prohibit.
3-8A. Sorry.
Sorry.
Right.
Slurring my words.
I also, it brings up another point that we're leaving the decision to protect or allow removal of a tree to people who do not have, I may not have, I should say, the knowledge that's needed to determine those things.
Right, but this assumes, I think, a tree management plan and an inventory is in place within a certain amount of time.
Well, and B2 does talk about the manager, the manager's designee, or a certified arborist.
Chosen by the village manager. So if you have a good arborist, like I do, and you want that person to be able to do work on your property, you have to get them approved and put on the list. That's what I was told, by the way.
So you're saying that if someone wants a tree removed on their property, that they are the one that find the arborist?
No.
No, not
From, you have to pick an arborist from the village manager's list.
the village manager. I think is the ultimate decision maker on
Right.
that.
I mean, it's
Um,
not
Right,
ideal.
that's my question. I'm just wondering
We
whether.
happen to have a current village manager who actually is an arborist.
He's an arborist, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that's gonna be that way in the future.
No matter who else you have.
Use
Who else
a
could
really
you
good
possibly
vet.
have?
It just brings up that question that I wanted to communicate that.
No, I agree with you. You don't want, you know, people, that's part of the problem. A lot of people who cut down trees for people in the village of Mamaroneck are not arborists. They're guys with chainsaws.
Right.
See trees totally butchered. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to prune them and whatnot.
If we're gonna be here all night, if we don't sort of move this along.
Right.
The other
So-
thing is we're talking
Okay.
about protected trees here. I think it should be protected tree or shrub because that's the definition.
Protected tree or shrub,
Yeah, so everywhere it says protected tree, it should be protected tree or shrub.
because that's the definition.
Right, I think that's what we have to stick with.
Protected tree or shrub,
So that there must be 3 places on this, 4 places on this page. So I'm gonna jump down to E unless somebody has something before then.
I don't have anything.
Okay, so no tree may be removed while an application for site development plan approval or subdivision plat approval for the property on which the tree is located is pending before the planning board. Well, okay, before I submit the application, I'm gonna cut down all the trees. No, you've got to put in something within 6 months prior to the submission. You have to.
Well, they won't be able to cut them down anyway. They're gonna have to get a permit, but they have to just, you know, if they don't disclose.
Yeah.
Have to put in an application for a subdivision, then whoever's approving the permit has no idea that this is gonna happen, right?
Okay, oh, and okay. Let me go back to C for a second, because this is where it gets inconsistent for me. So C says the building inspector may not grant a permit to remove a protected tree or shrub if, and then you're looking for more than 3, the property is removed more than 3 in the preceding 3 years, more than 2 trees from the wetland. That makes no accommodation if the tree is diseased. That shouldn't be held against you. If you need to take down trees because they're legitimately going to die, that shouldn't preclude you from taking down other trees at a later date. So
Then it wouldn't be protected though, right? If it's a protected tree that becomes dangerous, then it becomes a dangerous tree.
Well, it still says a protected tree in the statute. So what is it? You're right. It morphs.
That's why the definitions here are so important.
Right.
Because this particular section is talking about a protected tree.
Or shrub.
Tree is defined as a protected tree or shrub, right?
But it really, frankly, I think the definition of protected tree or shrub should include healthy, or, you know what I'm saying? It should be a
like a non-dangerous tree.
Right,
Yeah, right,
non-emergency, healthy,
Right.
otherwise healthy.
An otherwise healthy tree, right?
Okay.
Because again, if you have a lot of trees on your property, you know, if there's a problem and you have to be a responsible neighbor and you take down a dangerous tree, that this part of the code shouldn't preclude you from doing something else you'd otherwise be entitled to.
Okay. We may have to watch this to get the memo. All right, anybody else, anything on page 8? Now, permit removal, permit, planting trees on public, trees on private. Okay. Penalties, permit procedure, permit, denied may appeal, restoration work, plantings, emergency removals, enforcement.
So I'm on to K though, but before you go to enforcement, talks about a certificate of occupancy. We've seen lately there have been temporary certificates of occupancies issued for certain applications. So I would include in this before there is, there can't be an issuance of a certificate or a temporary certificate of occupancy. Because otherwise they're going to do it piecemeal if it's a multiple unit building.
Okay, anything else on page 10? Article 5, enforcement. Okay, then all of a sudden, all of the, okay. Page 11. And this is we're amending other sections of the code. So section 342-79 about the planning board has been amended that it says we shall review site plan development within 62 days from the time and after the time of submission. That shall is being changed to must. And as early as reasonably possible with the review process, the planning board may at its discretion refer the applicant's tree preservation plan to the tree committee for review and comment. It doesn't say we have to do it, but it says we can. Anybody have any problems with the changes to the planning board on that?
No.
No. All right, I think we caught everything. Anything else? William?
Yeah, I'll bring it up and I'll pass it along to the board.
Wait a minute. No, wait. Lou was just talking, but we couldn't hear him.
I think that was the TV.
He's not talking to us?
I think it was Homo.
All right, he's not talking to us. Susan, was there anything else that you had, or William, anything else that you had that you wanted to say that we should include or consider?
I think you should discuss, alignment with the village's master plan or village's long-term
comprehensive plan. The comprehensive
yeah.
plan. Did you actually look at and because you told us that in your opinion it was aligned with the master plan or the comprehensive plan. I didn't look at it or anything. Did you look at it and make sure that sentence is correct? If so, we can include
it.
That's
correct. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then you also recommended, and I guess in your experience you've come across this, that solar panels, removal of trees for solar panels has been, I guess, a problem in other municipalities. But I thought it was inferred in here. It doesn't matter why you want to remove the trees, whether solar panels being installed or other reasons, other than, a healthy tree. So I thought that, I didn't know if we needed to separate out that reason for any purpose. So I thought I think that this is pretty inclusive for if you want to take down a healthy tree for any reason, then you have to follow the following steps and you can't do certain things.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Fair enough, but the only thing that I've experienced is the fact that the solar panel companies, just to let you know, is that they have a lot of them, they actually have a tree cutting division. And they don't investigate code or anything like that. They go out, take down the tree, and then 2 or 3 months later, the applicant comes in seeking solar panels. So I don't know whether it should stand out. I don't know if that's something that should be brought to the village board's attention. I don't know how you want to address it, if you want to address it. for that matter.
Well, I think that anybody who cuts down a tree without a permit is now subject to certain penalties. So if the solar panel people cut down the tree and then the homeowner comes in to apply, and the trees were cut down, and they're subject to the penalties just like anybody else.
Okay.
I
Fair enough.
think the best way to deal with this law is to have a whistleblower fee. So you rat out your neighbors, because I see what William's saying. You cut
Right.
down trees, nobody knows about it, and then they go on about their business. But
So the whistleblower should get a percentage of the fine.
no, but well,
Maybe they do that. Other government, federal governments do that.
Maybe what we could do is urge the village board to think long and hard about enforcement of this, because we're all wasting our time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kathy, I have a problem of turning neighbor against neighbor. I don't want neighbors going on other neighbors saying, I don't like this tree and I think it should be pruned, or I don't think you should have removed that limb and I think you should be fined. I don't want.
Or you can do what, just if there's a branch from your tree hanging over the neighbor's yard, they could just hire somebody to cut it at the property line. That happened to me. I made them cut it at the trunk because that was not appropriate. We have enough problems with woodpeckers.
Kathy, what about a situation of what's called in I guess arborist terms, a management cut? There are occasions where you have some large trees and let's say a group of 3 trees, and one tree is causing the other 2 trees to grow properly, and they might be of significant gauge. Are we setting up a system where before you do that, you have to go and talk to the village manager about doing what's called a management cut? It's almost like a large level weeding, actually. You want to pull out the one.
I don't read this that any kind of maintenance to trees, it's removing trees.
If it's a protected tree, yeah, you'd have to go.
If they're removing it.
Do it, but you can do it.
But if they're just pruning it, if you're removing a tree for any reason, you have to get a permit.
If it's big enough. If it's big enough.
Right, if it's big enough, right. Right.
So if you talk to your arborist and you're doing a management cut and saying that this tree is kind of growing and might become dangerous, I have to go talk to the village manager.
You have to get a permit. Well, you don't have to necessarily talk to the village manager. You have to file a permit. The property I'm sitting on right now, we had to take 2 trees that were deemed dangerous by an arborist last year. We did them over the winter. We had to put a new septic system in, and the septic guys compromised the roots of a huge, huge pine tree right next to the house. And if it fell, it would fall on the house. I had to get a permit from the town. It was $45, and I could cut up to 3 trees. I had to do a map of where the trees were. I had to explain why the trees had to come down. And then the arborist I had to submit a report from a certified arborist. I had already had the report from the arborist before I did this. And then they issued a tree permit and the arborists they needed a permit, and they couldn't do anything until they got it from the town. This
was under the present law?
Where I am now, I'm in Maine.
In Maine.
Oh,
I'm in Maine. I'm in Maine. I'm in a little town in Maine. This is a little dinky town.
You didn't say that. I was.
I'm sorry. I said where I am now. You didn't see the lake in the background?
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting in Maine right now. And I mean, this is a little dinky rural town in Maine. I'm sorry if anybody from Raymond, Maine is, and they have a tree law and they have tree ordinances. And I had to get a certified arborist, but I wouldn't have done it anyway. I didn't want to take the tree down. One tree was leaning towards one house and the other tree would come down on another building. But this is pretty standard procedure all over this country. This is not breaking new ground here. This is catching up to what people have been doing for years. Did we lose John? He got so angry he left? No.
I have 2 more comments.
Okay.
And I just want to bring up that section 10 on page 12 also refers to the tree preservation plan.
But if we define it differently, then wherever it's referred
Right,
to in
exactly.
the law, right? So we can cover it by the definition. Okay.
And under the definitions, severe root pruning. Usually when this has come up in a number of applications, Grove Street comes to mind right now, where my recommendation to the board is to take the canopy and draw a straight line down, and that the drip line is what needs to be protected. So under severe root pruning, they're saying 1.5 times the drip line.
What page are you on? I'm sorry, what page are you on?
It's in the definitions.
Root pruning?
Oh, here, I ran into this because the document that we were originally sent is different than the one on the website now, even though the date is the same.
It was formatted differently. I think it was
But this definition wasn't in the one that I was sent.
Yeah, because I don't have anything about root pruning in.
No.
Yeah, so I looked at the date at the bottom of the left of the page is exactly the same from the one we were originally sent to
This
what
says
is on the
version
website
20.
now.
Is it the one you pulled off the website? Is it version 20? This says draft tree law V20 7/8/2020.
It's July 8th, 2020. It's the same thing. So William, I don't know if that's, we need to fix the date or something on that, because there's a definition that says severe root pruning, cutting back the underground tree roots inside 1.5 times the drip line of the tree that will be detrimental to the life of the tree. So
But that's not referred to anywhere in the code itself. It's just a definition hanging out there, right?
I don't know that. I haven't.
All right. Well, that's something.
That's a good question.
Right, that's a good question.
So
And it's-
number one, which document is the document that we should be reviewing? Because clearly there's been changes made. And number two, how does the planning board feel about that restriction to any root cutting? I mean, in general, the crown of a tree reflects the root
Right.
system beneath the
Right.
ground.
Right.
But still,
It depends on, it also depends on the tree. A deciduous tree, yes. I mean, we're dealing with columnar, like white pine, the drip line, the roots are much more extensive than the drip line of the tree and whatnot, so.
right. So
We can point this out as a question and
Right.
let the board decide. We don't.
Because it also
Right.
relates to the village's tree protection plan, SD 1L. And that tree protection plan says that you protect the tree from the crown down. And this is related, but it has to do with
It's going beyond outside the crown.
going beyond that. Beyond the drip line of the tree. So just food for thought.
Okay. Got it. Anybody got anything else? Okay, we've got lots of minutes here. We've got April and May, which means we still have June and July to catch up on, and now September. But let's start with April and May. Okay. We're going to do these in chronological order. Anybody have a problem with doing them in order?
Nope.
All right, so the first one is the minutes from a special planning board meeting on Thursday, April 14th. It was a work session on Hampshire. We'll do this page by page. And if possible, if we can approve the minutes as amended, because there'll be amendments, I think, on just about every one. The first comment I have is on page 1 of the 14th. The people present, Mr. Messenger's name is spelled incorrectly. It's not Messiner. The N and the G should be transposed. Right below that, Mr. Verney is not excused from Hampshire, he's recused. And that's an important legal distinction. So he should be changed as recused. And I don't even know if we need to mention Brian as being excused, since he was not involved at all in Hampshire. I don't think he shows up on any of the minutes on Hampshire, but I guess we're being complete here. And then whenever a vote is taken, Mr. Verney is being shown as excused instead of recused. So on page 3, there's a vote to reject. That has to be changed to recused. Anybody have anything before then? No? Page 4, there's a typo in the middle of the page. I'm not going to worry about it. Top of page 5. The sentence, the very first sentence, it says the LWRP recommending that it shouldn't be project, it should say property. There's also a word missing in the middle of that page, where it says page 63, section T, 1, 2, third person down, Mr. Messenger. I think we should probably add a paragraph. I would give what the application had to, it shouldn't be so, it should be say.
Say, yeah.
Now the sentence makes sense. Page 7, bottom of the page. There's a gap, the second one up from the bottom where it says Chair Savolt. I don't have a problem with that. And then there's some words missing, so we should fill it in as it's filled in other places by saying inaudible, and then start with what the transcript picked up. So there's just not, it looks like the Nixon tapes. Let's see. I don't have anything else on the 14th.
I don't either.
Anybody else even read these minutes?
Read them so long ago, I forgot.
All right, you don't make notes? Okay. Anybody uncomfortable? And John, obviously you're recused from voting on these minutes. We'll make sure that it's recused.
Not excused.
Problem with approving the minutes as amended? Can I have a motion then to approve?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And John is recused. Okay, done. Now we have similar minutes from a special meeting of the planning board on Thursday, April 22nd. And actually, this isn't a special meeting. No, this is a Thursday.
It's a Thursday.
We have, John is with us until we get to Hampshire, I guess. But no, it says it's a special meeting and it says it's on Thursday.
I'm looking to see if there was a holiday.
Maybe.
Wait a minute. Thursday was April 23rd. Wednesday was April 22nd, which is when our meeting was. So it's Wednesday, April 22nd.
It's not a special meeting.
Right.
Okay, so very top, it just should say planning board meetings and it should say it's on a Wednesday.
And get rid of special.
And
Well,
get
they're
rid
all
of special.
They're all special, but
Special. They are, aren't they? Okay, I don't have anything on page 1. Jump in, anybody.
I have
anything.
nothing. I have nothing.
I don't have anything until towards the end. We have even pictures in these minutes, which is pretty cool. Yeah, page 35 is typo, page 30. Oh, okay. I don't have anything till the very end. And I have to say, I do not understand how these minutes were developed. Because in the beginning and throughout, it seems like it's a Zoom transcript. Then it appears that there was some human intervention. Because on page 38, in the middle of the page, we're talking about changing a sentence, and this is in the Hampshire portion, and changing a paragraph, and then the new paragraph was read aloud. So if this was a transcript, it should have been included, but it just says Mr. Messenger read the paragraph as rewritten by me. So we'll let it stand, obviously, because the document has the paragraph in it. But at the very bottom of that page, the last word in my comments about the chapter, it's not mute, it's moot, M-O-O-T. So that word should be changed because mute doesn't make sense. Okay, I think John can vote on these minutes, some of them anyway, because you were involved in the first part of this meeting. So, can I have a motion to amend the approve minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're back to a special meeting of the planning board. We have minutes from Thursday, May 4th. Now, was that actually Thursday? And was that actually, it's just Hampshire. So again, John is recused. And neither Brian nor Christie were involved in Hampshire. So I don't even know if we need to mention them as being excused. But throughout, John should be recused, and there are multiple votes being taken in this particular meeting, and John needs to be changed to recused in every one of them.
Thank you.
John, you're just so important to us. Stand out. I think other than that, I don't have anything. This was the public hearing. And there are literally multiple references for John being excused. Other than that, I have nothing.
Neither.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve these minutes as amended?
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It looks like we lost Lou, so Lou did not vote on these particular minutes. Okay, then we have, I don't think this is a special meeting of the planning board on a Wednesday. This is a meeting of the planning board, so the word special needs to come out again from the heading.
Yes.
And the only thing that's missing, and this has to be picked up by somebody who's going to look at the tape, is there's a section, a place for the time the meeting was adjourned to be put in, but nobody ever put any time in. So, other than that, I didn't have any other comments, other than that's missing.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else on May 13th?
Nope.
Need a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Amended, because I didn't look up the time. Staff can do that. A second.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now again, we have minutes from May 27th, and again, they're not special. That needs to come out again. It's a regular planning board meeting. And these are action minutes. So there was a piece of information that I felt was missing that was important. It wasn't an action, but it affects the action. So on page 2, here we're talking about One Shore Road. And when you read all the minutes leading up to this, it kind of makes sense. This was the application where HCZM bifurcated the application for site plan and we were struggling with how do we do a partial site plan. And this was the meeting where they came to us and we made decisions about it because HCZM had completed their review and gave full consistency. We didn't need to bifurcate it, but that's not reflected anywhere here. So at the beginning of page 2, it says the board didn't have any questions or comments for the applicant and there was no public comment. Before that, we have to make a statement, and I wrote a paragraph, or William, I can email this to you. I wrote, since full consistency was granted by HCZM, the planning board considered the full application for the site plan and the wetlands permit. Now, we can wordsmith that and didn't need to bifurcate the application in any way, or we just leave it at that. But that's why we didn't have any questions or comments, because that was addressed at HCZM. And I thought that that's just needed to be said.
There's no concept of full consistency. So I would say because HCZMC granted consistency on the entire project.
Okay.
Maybe as originally, the entire project.
The entire application. Application. Okay.
Planning board did not take action on a bifurcated.
Okay, right. So so there was no bifurcated application, and the planning board considered the full applications for site plan and wetlands permit. Okay. Okay, we can get language to William tomorrow on this. Other than that, I had no comments on these minutes.
No, it's fine.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to the executive session. So we're gonna leave this meeting. We're gonna call an executive session or Zoom in. If you're gonna Zoom in, you have to leave this Zoom meeting, log out and log into the other Zoom meeting, and then log back into this one.
What's everybody doing? Zooming or calling?
I'm gonna call this meeting. When we come back, Mr. Verney won't be with us because part of the executive session is with regards to an application he's recused on. So he will be leaving us unless you want to come back and adjourn the meeting with us, John.
Is the only matter I'm recused on in the executive session?
Yes, we're talking about all the pending lawsuits. We're getting an update on the pending lawsuits. And there are 2 of them with the planning board and the members of the planning board. So we'll be brought up to date with I guess people know what they are, right? I can say what they are, right?
I think we should. Specific.
The first one is Grove Street, and the applicant or the litigant or the whatever petitioner is suing both the planning board and us all individually. And then Hampshire, which is suing the planning board. So we'll be brought up to date on both of those. Okay.
Right. So I'm involved in the first one.
So you're involved with Grove Street. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
We're all involved with Grove Street. Okay.
So Kathy, say that again. We need to leave this or we?
If you're going to call in, you don't need to leave this. Just mute yourself and shut your video off and William will put up an executive session. If you want to Zoom into the executive session.
Yeah, I'm going to Zoom in.
I think that William explained that Village has a new phone system and we lost the conference call numbers. So we don't have conference call ability anymore. So we're doing conference calls through Zoom now. Either Zoom in or you can call in. You got a very clear email about this today on how to do it. All right. So I'm going to.
So if you give me a second, I have to end. In order for that to happen, I have to end this Zoom call.
Okay.
And then I have to open up the executive session.
Okay. So we can mute ourselves and we don't have. If we call in, we don't have to come back we don't have to log back into this one, do we?
You do, because you have to close the meeting.
Oh, then I'm going to Zoom in if I have to close this one anyway. All right. All right, I misunderstood how this.
I told Bob to call in, so I apologize. I thought everyone was calling in, so I hope that's.
Well, whatever, all right, so we have to leave this meeting,
Yes.
come back to it. So if there's any members of the public that are still with us, I totally apologize to you that we have to do this, but we have to do this, so.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna end the meeting now, Madam Chair.
Okay.